Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Michele Scherr from Australia. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney.
Thank you very much, April.
Where the
Awesome to
conversation
be
is
here.
pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. You are quite the busy lady. You just went to a wedding, I saw. You looked absolutely stunning. Who got married?
Oh, thank you. That was my husband's niece.
Oh, wow. Was it quite the affair? A lot of people?
Oh my goodness. Yes, it was absolutely gorgeous. It was in the hinterland in northern New South Wales on the east coast of Australia. And even though it had been raining and it was a bit the ground was a bit soggy, the day was absolutely beautiful. It went really well.
Do you have a lot of people there?
There were probably about 70 people there. We're quite fortunate here with our gatherings and that sort of thing that we can have that number.
That's a good number. I had 350 people at my wedding.
Holy smokes.
Girl, we had a horse and carriage. We had Rolls Royces. You would have thought I was the queen. I was.
Oh my goodness. How did you get around to speak to everyone?
You know, I don't know. I'm glad you asked me that, because to this day, I've been married 37 years. I don't even know if I still spoke to everybody that was there. But we had one grand time. But you know, weddings are very expensive now. Oh my goodness.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
It's a lot going into it. But again, it's, it's a moment in time. It's a snapshot in time.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're doing. You're creating a snapshot in time, because you are a success mentor. I love that. You know, that word coach is overused. And to really mentor someone is to really pretty much hold their hand. Coach, I think, is a little bit more of kind of pushy, kind of bossy. But to mentor is to love and to nurture. And you know a lot about that as a former nurse in the Australian Air Force. We're going to hear all about that. Your dreams, your aspirations, what you're doing, and what you're going to be pouring into people in the future in your new career. So let's start with a little bit about your humble beginnings, Michele.
Awesome. Thank you, April. Well, I grew up in North Queensland, again on the east coast of Australia, and in a little sugar town. So we had a lot of sugar cane. My dad worked at the local sugar refinery, or the mill, as we called it. And yeah, I guess.
Let me ask you a question. See, when you tell me good stuff, I gotta stop. Okay, so he worked there. So you grow sugar cane in Australia as well? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Up the east coast, mainly in Queensland. That's one of the crops that is a staple in Queensland.
And so raw sugar is probably the best. Do you guys, do they process it and do all of that as well?
Oh, absolutely. April, I remember growing up and in the sugarcane crushing season. So that's when all the cane is cut and it's taken to the mill to be refined and that sort of thing. Even the air was sweet. Like it's just, and now I have a sugar addiction. However, at the time, you just kind of get along. We lived on, my dad was part of the staff, so we lived close to the mill on the mill estate, and it was just phenomenal. All the sweetness coming in, and the air was sweet. It was just was great.
Well, and sugar gets such a bad rap. People say, stay away from sugar. Girl, I love me some sugar. But the Chinese call it the sweet poison.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
If you're dealing with raw sugar, it's not like it is when it goes through all of this refining and bleaching and overusing it. You just use a dab of sugar. When I traveled to Australia, the food and the desserts did not taste a third as sweet as it is here in the United States. We way overdo it.
It's funny you should say that, because that's something that I've found as well. When certainly when my husband and I have travelled in the States, we find that if we just get a dessert or a sweet between us, because that's enough. It's I did get some fresh fruit one time from a supermarket, from a grocery store, and even it had been sugarized, and I was like, oh my gosh, this yeah.
And it takes away the natural sugars. So, okay, I'm sorry I interjected. So finish telling me your wonderful story, because that's sweet. Growing up
No,
in sugar
yeah.
canes, that's sweet.
So yeah, so I left home, grew up, stayed in the same place for 17 years or so, and left home. And I decided I wanted to be a nurse. And I went off and was hospital trained. And then I decided that I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to be a registered nurse. And so I began my degree. And during that time, my first marriage actually fell apart. And there I was with two little children. And I thought, I need some help so that I can study and just look after the children. And so I joined the undergraduate scheme for the Australian Defence Force. I signed up to the Royal Australian Air Force, and they sponsored me. In other words, they paid me a salary and provided me with housing and that sort of thing. And I went to university and did the best I could.
Well, you
And
did
then,
better than that. You became an actual registered nurse. But beyond that, your career took you into some very challenging situations, and you saw a lot. Tell us a little bit about that.
absolutely. So I had decided, prior to becoming a registered nurse, I really enjoyed the emergency type presentations. I'd worked in a country hospital, and it was kind of there that I really could tap into my abilities and my skills, my aptitude. And so when I became a registered nurse, that was what I wanted to do. So critical care, emergency type nursing. And then I consolidated my university degree and went off to Air Force to start paying back what we call a return of service obligation. So they'd sponsored me, and they were like, little girl, come here, you've got some time to do. And so I went on back, and I think in my, gosh, it would have been in my second full year, I guess, second to third full year, I was deployed on peacekeeping operations to East Timor. The year before that, we'd had an operation here where we'd started to get a lot of emigrant boats, people jumping in boats, and I think you guys have something similar off
Girl, please.
here.
You might as well call it a bus stop, because people jump over the wall. They build
Yeah.
tunnels. They find these little pontoon boats. They
Yeah.
had a at the border patrol, 30 people in a van. 30 people
Wow.
piled up in a van. So,
Wow.
yeah, we get it all
That's
the time.
desperation, isn't it? That's desperation.
It's desperation, and they're looking for a better life. And I get
Mm.
it, but you got to enter the country legally.
Do the right thing. And with Australia having so much water around it, being an island continent, people will often, or the operation I was involved in, people were flying first class from some Middle Eastern countries. They were flying to Malaysia and then hopping in this leaky boat to go from Malaysia to Australia. And I mean, that's a journey of weeks in a boat. And anyway, we were picking them up and we were bringing them back to Australia for immigrant detention, basically. And so I did that. Went off to East Timor. I went and supported the effort in the Middle East in 2005. So I was doing aeromedical evacuations for the Australians out of Iraq, and supporting the guys there. And during that time,
Let me stop you there, because I love to interject in the middle of the story.
no worries.
That was one heck of a culture shock, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think going to East Timor first was kind of preparatory because it's a third world country. And we were based on the border where a lot of the insurgency fighting, if it was happening, that's where it was happening. And but having said that, we did a lot more humanitarian care for the locals than we actually had with any of the combatants. And that was really quite eye-opening, in that a lot of the presentations we were having, you just wouldn't see in the first world. Like obstructed labour, where, for instance, just an example, a lady who ended up coming to us in obstructed labour of, I don't know, maybe her fourth or fifth child, she walked for 3 days in
Mm.
labour down from the hills to get help. Unfortunately, the child wasn't able to be saved. It had died sometime during those 3 days. But it's just amazing, things that you would not see here in Australia.
Let me ask you a question, and I love
Sure.
that question. Being a white Australian woman in a third world country, um, did that, what did that do for you as a person?
That I think it made me realise. I guess I can put this in the whole context of feminine or female safety. Every now and then we would go into the local markets at the local village, and just to put some money into the economy, that sort of thing. Not a heck of a lot, but often, like, we were carrying weapons, rifles and what have you, and often the crowds, they just wanted to touch the white skin. They hadn't seen a female with white skin before, and they wanted to touch it. And that's actually quite confronting when you've got this huge crowd of people around you and they're all just wanting to touch you.
Yeah, that's what happened to me when I went in China. They
Oh,
wanted
is
to
that
touch the
right?
afro, and
Yeah.
they looked at me like I was an alien, and I kind of felt like an alien. I was like, wow. But it was strange because before we went, my friend's mother goes, "Are you going to wear your hair like that when you go to China?" And I was like, yeah, that's who I am. And, I want them to meet me, not my representative. And when I got there, I had on a rapper Tupac Shakur's t-shirt. Soon as I got off the plane, "Hey, soul sister, how you doing? I like Tupac too." So again, people connect with you in the strangest ways. So you were there and you were dealing with these women, but you connected with them, woman to woman. It wasn't ethnicity, it wasn't their differences, it wasn't their culture, it wasn't their language. It was their heart and their center. So finish telling me the story.
Yeah, so that all kind of crowned around, and it was quite confronting, trying not to be disturbed or frightened while because they were just exploring, they were just curious. And yeah, it was quite lovely. We actually went into the hospital once a week, and we would help out the nurses in terms of education while we were running a minor operation theatre and that sort of thing. And it was really quite interesting. We were helping them to develop their operating theatre so that it wasn't open to the elements to start with,
Right, right.
and they could get some sterility and that sort of thing. But it was quite an event for the town. Everyone would come to watch.
Exactly,
And
because you were a novelty, you know,
exactly.
you were a novelty. But as a human being,
Mm.
it made you a lot more compassionate. Did it make you a lot more sensitive? Did it make you a lot more reserved? How did that engage your
That's actually a tough one, because from a personal perspective, I guess I had um, it really gave me some insight into some humanitarian stuff, and it solidified some of my learning, because we really were depending upon our own skills. I didn't necessarily have a doctor available to me, whereas in a hospital, if I was concerned or anything like that, I'd just kind of put my hand up and I'd have a doctor available to me. In these instances, I was very much relying on my own clinical skills and judgment, and being able to, I learned a lot about being able to talk to people when there's a language barrier,
right?
some sort of a barrier there. So whether for us it was language, in other aspects they couldn't see well, so it was trying to communicate when I didn't speak the language other than to say hello and how are you. And trying to communicate that I wanted them to do something in particular when they couldn't see very well or hear very well. That was
Also, but beyond that, you also had to remember to stay safe. Because
yes,
people get, sometimes people get overly compassionate and they let their guards down.
yeah,
You have to forget that you can't forget that you are there. It is wartime.
and it
Okay.
was a military mission.
Yeah, we're not here for milk and cookies. Okay. We are here
That's
to
correct.
do a job. And so there are people there that are going to be in the background with ulterior motives. So it took a lot of bravery. So you left the military. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, I guess I went through. So East Timor was my first kind of warlike experience. Then Iraq, and then Afghanistan. I came back from Afghanistan quite unwell, um, having a lot of hypervigilance and nightmares and all of that sort of thing.
PTSD, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And whilst I tried to cope with it and ignore it and use my leadership skills and, my interpersonal skills and that sort of thing to cope with the lack of sleep and the hypervigilance and the fear, like going to work one day. I remember coming from Afghanistan. I remember a fellow of Middle Eastern origin hopping on the bus, and he was shaved and he had a backpack, and that's one of the triggers in the warlike area was they would shave and they'd have a backpack, the suicide bombers. And that was it. I got off the bus and I could never get back on another bus.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it took a number of years. I basically I hid my illness under I guess some anger and officiousness and all of that sort of thing for a number of years, for about 6 or 7 years, and it finally caught up with me. And so by that stage, I'd been in the Air Force for 19 years, and it just all fell apart. The whole military environment for me wasn't conducive for getting better. Most of my triggers were in the military environment. I couldn't go back to nursing because a lot of my triggers were also there in the emergency department. And I got found out.
You saw horrific things. I mean, it's not like, and I'm not minimizing anything, but it's not like a gunshot here in the United States. I mean, you're seeing decapitated limbs, half of faces. You're seeing children. You're seeing women. You're seeing a lot. And it's something. And I'll tell you that you probably can't see this, but I see something in your face right now that kind of a snapshot back into that place. How did you get through the PTSD? A lot of people say, "Oh, I get through it," or I get over it. It's ingrained in who you are. You don't have to act on it. But how do you cope with that? How did you learn to cope?
Oh my gosh. I was really sick with PTSD and depression, and I had a lot of help from a psychologist and from my specialist, my medical specialist. And while I was in the forces, I found that people don't really understand a lot when it comes to mental health, let alone PTSD. So when it came to, okay, well, how do we work together? What kind of work outcomes? Because the military is like this big machinery. It just keeps going. I think of those big machines in Star Wars, that had the little Ewoks jumping out of them. They just keep going and going. And the military is just like that. And it's like, if you need to pause for a period of time and just go, I need to focus on me, I need to focus on getting well, the military goes, I don't know how to deal with that because our machinery has to keep going.
Right.
And
right.
That was actually really difficult.
And being a woman, oh, she's just emotional, or it's hormonal, or, girl, I know. And that really makes you want to scratch their eyes out. And then you're working with all of these men. You still got to be a military soldier. I don't care, regardless, because it's like a Broadway show. The show must go on.
Absolutely.
And then you have children
Yeah.
that are putting an additional strain on you, and you want to be a good, compassionate mother, but you're seeing snapshots in your mind of what these other women went through, all of the dismemberment that you've seen of these children, and this fear. Wow, you are my shero. You are really my hero, because that's a lot. It's a
And
lot.
it is a lot. You're right. It is a lot. And coming back, so that was 2010 when I went to Afghanistan. I was medically discharged from the Australian Forces in September 2017. And I didn't know who I was. I had so much wrapped up in my uniform and the persona of who I was, because I was helping people, I was making a difference. Yes, at my own personal cost, because I was giving so much without filling my cup.
Right.
Yeah, and when I got out of the military, I had no idea who I was, absolutely none, and I was devastated. Had all those little voices in my head going, "You're not good enough. You're over it. You're had it. You'll never be good enough. You
Wow.
can't do your job anymore. No one looks up to you. They're going to forget you. You're useless."
And you know what? And you come back, and I should say this, my husband's former military as well. You come back with or we'll use people from Vietnam, not with a certain arrogance, but I've done this for you. I've done this for my country. I've done this for civilians. You should pat me on the back. You should give me a bonus. You should give me a parade. But no, what do? You give me problems. You don't want to give me my benefits. You disrespect me. You belittle me. So, you've wrapped all of that in a tight bundle, and you said, you know what? Now I'm going to forge ahead, and I'm going to talk to people about self-confidence and success. How did you make that leap of faith?
Well, I guess I knew that when I got out of the military, I needed to create community for myself. I needed to be involved in something bigger than me. And funnily enough, one of my female friends from the USAF, from the United States Air Force, reached out to me about a network marketing opportunity. And I just went, you know what? I want to be around positive people. I want to be part of that community. So I joined with her, and I've met some remarkable ladies. All of my upline is in the US and on the East Coast of the US. And I've met some remarkable ladies and some incredible stories. And I just went, you know what? I've always been a very confident person. Even when I'm shaking inside, I always have come across as being fairly confident. I believe in facing things that frighten me and not kind of backing down. So,
I guess so. You was in the military and you were a nurse.
so, so that was where I kind of started understanding. And I guess anyone that goes into multi-level marketing or network marketing, there's so much personal development that comes with that. And I just went, so I went from basically zero, almost suicidal, to feeling so much better and feeling like I've got something to offer. I can help people. It doesn't have to be through the military. It doesn't have to be big things, but I can help them with this product. And then I started mentoring people in my downline, and I was getting real joy from helping them and seeing the light turn on for them.
Right.
Whether it was a business opportunity, whether it was a personal thing, it was just I can see it happening for them.
Right.
And so I decided that I would go into success mentoring as well and take it back, because I remember in the military, that's where I got so much joy, was mentoring juniors coming through and seeing their world expand and seeing them go ahead, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, look at this, look at what I can do.
Exactly.
And that
And finding self, and a lot of that starts with a conversation,
absolutely
and people that understand who you are, or at least willing to listen, a good listener. You don't always need the talk therapy. You don't always need the medication. Sometimes a good conversation with a stranger. And multi-level marketing can be a lot of fun too. There's great motivation there.
Oh, the
There's great,
energy.
the energy, they get you hyped. Okay. I did it years ago. I was extremely successful at it because I had the sales capacity. I'm,
Yes,
I'm not, I'm like you, I'm not shy. I face it head on. And
yes,
it can do a lot for people's self-esteem, but it's also an opportunity to build a team
absolutely.
and building that team, because you can sell widgets. It doesn't matter what the product is. If you
Yes,
are a good team leader, they will follow you like the Pied Piper.
yes.
And so now you are in this success coaching and mentoring. What do you look to pour into people?
I look to help them reignite their own fire. I
Mm,
look to pour. Actually, I really look to just tweak and push at the sides so that they kind of go, it's a self-actualization thing. Oh my gosh, I can actually do this. And then a little bit more support and a little bit more widening. And they go, I'm I'm able. I'm empowered. I'm able. And yeah, so I
get excited and you get, what is the feeling that you get when you see the fire ignite in one of your clients or one of your downlines or even one of your children? When you see that spark, how does that make you feel?
oh, I just get so excited for them. It's like, oh, I just want to do a little happy dance and clap and you know, I do. I just get so incredibly excited for them.
Exactly.
And
And it makes you feel, that's how I am. When I promote people or I see them get a big win or a success or a big check, I get so excited for them because
yes.
I know how that feels to pour into an individual. What is your ideal client?
So my ideal client is usually look, I help men and women, but my ideal client would be a woman 40s to 50s and has got to the point in her life where a life event has happened. So whether the children have finally left home or they're teenagers and self-caring, or perhaps even something more devastating has happened. They've lost a partner or they've separated from their partner and decided to go a different way. And they're kind of like, okay, now I want my life, but I don't know what my life is.
Mm,
And that's where I kind of go, okay, I can help you. I can help you. Let's follow this process. Let's find out how the brain works. Let's look at your desires. Let's embed them in your brain and let's get that action happening. And it's not a short-term process. What I teach is not a short-term process. It's actually giving the foundations and then letting it percolate and making sure it's in there and having those triggers. So whether it's a music trigger or an emotion trigger or something like that, or a visual trigger, and they go, and it keeps reminding them, it's like falling in love with the life that they want. So yeah, so they're probably, they're the usually a woman who is gone, and maybe this is what we used to call midlife crisis. They don't really know what they want, so they're trying out different things, but I can help them with that, and I can help embed it into their subconscious so that their actions are constantly working towards the life that they want.
not only can you do that, but you can also nurture them. You
Absolutely.
can help heal them. You have a cure.
Absolutely.
And I think that that is so beautiful. Michelle, you are just an amazing woman. I
Oh,
love
thank
that smile. I have been watching you. We had a conversation before, our vetting conversation, and it was a different person. It was a different person because I was telling you, what did I tell you? You got to put not your pinky toe, you got to put both feet in the water and a sink or swim. And I tell you, you are
you.
swimming the sharks now. I've been watching and I'm loving your little short clips and your inspiration and your smile. And again, um, what don't kill you make you strong.
Absolutely. That's a very good Kelly Clarkson song.
And right. And if you hadn't have been through all of that, you would not be the woman, excuse me, that you are today. And you would not be able to, as I say, pour into other individuals. And so again, my hat, I salute you. I do,
Thank
because
you.
it takes a lot. It takes a lot. What be in closing, what would you say to another woman that's in the military right now, that's feeling lost, that's feeling underappreciated, that may be being abused in any kind of way, being talked down to by her subordinates or, the chain of command? What would you say to her to give her some inspiration and encouragement to forge ahead?
Gosh, that's a tough one. There are so many sides to that. But number one thing, reach out to your support network. You are not alone. Never feel that you are the only one coping with this. Reach out to your support network and just remember that you've gotten through to date, you've gotten through 100% of all those really hard days. You've got a really good record with it. So keep going, but engage your support.
What would you tell a 25-year-old Michele Scherr?
Oh gosh, when I was 25, when I was 25, I would be telling myself, believe in yourself. You are valuable. You are worth it. Get to know your own value and put that out there.
Well, you have done that. Please tell my brains how to contact you. Brains, okay, on the edge. That's where she is. That's what we're doing it. Okay, we are fighting it. We are fighting it. We're feeling the feelings and we're doing it anyway. Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell my brains how to get in contact with you. I want them to work with you. I want them to follow you on all the social media platforms.
Lovely. So I'm on Facebook. It's Michele with one L, and Scherr is Scherr. I'm on LinkedIn, same contact details, Michele with one L and Scherr. I'm also on Instagram, and no surprises, Michele Scherr, Scherr. So
And
yeah,
that is going to be on the back of this interview. Michele with one L and Scherr, Scherr. I love it. I love it. And
awesome.
I want you to come back, and I love to have a panel. I love to have a panel of women, that are just really, that have been through some trauma, and there's all kinds of trauma in the world. It's not just that. So again, I thank you. And I am just so glad to have you here on the Edge Brains. Go and check out other Edge Conversations. Okay. I think we got stuck with that beautiful smile, and I love it. I'm so proud of her. We will be back with other edgy conversations. No better way to end a great conversation here on the edge than with a beautiful smile. Thank you so much, Michele. I would like to have you, come back with other panel of women that have been through challenges, trauma, because you're not stuck in your situation. You are not stuck in your situation, and there is hope, and never give up. Every day you wake up, you have an opportunity to start anew. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You are not what has happened to you.
Exactly.
So
Well,
thank you so much for having me, April. This has been absolutely fantastic. Lovely.
I love you too. So again, like I said, women in the military, it's not for chumps. It is not. It is not. So thank you again. Brains, share, like, join, follow if you love. Talk to you soon.